guys, my name is Sarah and today we are going to be learning about non-alcoholic red wine lowering blood pressure. I think this is very interesting. I did not know anything about this until I was doing research for this article. So it's a very fascinating phenomenon, I think. So as usual, we are going to read through the article one time in English, and then there are a couple of tricky words in here. So we're going to review the more difficult vocabulary, and then we're going to read through the article one more time again in English. All right? So are you ready? Let's go. All right, let's go. All right, let's go. So the headline is non-alcoholic red wine may lower blood pressure. Very interesting. A group of scientists based in Spain has discovered that drinking a moderate amount of red wine on a daily basis may be effective in lowering blood pressure. The scientists performed an experiment using 67 men between the ages of 55 and 75 as test subjects. The subjects drank a predetermined amount of red wine, non-alcoholic red wine, and rum for consecutive periods of 4 weeks each. Subjects' blood pressure was reduced significantly during the periods in which they drank non-alcoholic red wine. It has become an old wives' tale for decades that a glass of red wine per day is good for one's health. However, this study found that while the alcoholic red wine produced moderate results, the non-alcoholic variant lowered blood pressure by 6%, much more than the alcoholic red wine or rum. So does this mean that high blood pressure patients should start stockpiling non-alcoholic red wine? A professor at Harvard University is not so sure. Because the study's N, a scientific term for the number of subjects, was so low and the effect has only been observed in middle-aged Spanish males, we can't guarantee that the effect will be universal, she said. Further testing will be needed to see if the results of this study necessitate a change in nutritional guidance for the public at large. In a time when approximately 1/3 of Americans suffer from high blood pressure, this remedy could be a sweet alternative to the expensive medications. In the meantime, however, we will have to continue waiting for a cure. So, wow, lots of scientific words came out in this article. A lot of really interesting information also. So we're going to review some more challenging vocabulary and then we're going to read through this article one more time. All right, are you ready? Let's do it. Okay, so one of the first words that we saw is moderate. So what does moderate mean? In Korean, we could say something is like 적당하다 or 중간에. So something in the middle, something that's not too much and not too little. So, and that's the definition right here. So not too much or too little, within limits. So if we want to say that at night the temperature changed, but it didn't change a whole lot, just a little bit, we could say that there was a moderate change in temperature at night. So usually it gets a little bit cooler at night, but perhaps only by like 5 degrees Celsius. You can say that was a moderate change. So the opposite or the antonym of the word moderate would be extreme, excessive, great, or radical. So in the article we read that drinking a moderate amount of red wine on a daily basis. In the article we read that drinking a moderate amount of red wine on a daily basis may be effective in lowering blood pressure. So we're not saying that you should be drinking bottles and bottles of red wine every single day. That's way too much, and that is not moderate at all. In fact, that would probably be excessive or extreme. But if you just drink a little bit, maybe 1 glass a night, it could have a positive result. So that's what moderate means. So how did they find this out? How did they discover that non-alcoholic red wine might reduce blood pressure? Well, they did an experiment And in Korean, we can say that an experiment is a 실험. So what is an experiment exactly? It's a test version. An experiment is when you try something that is still unproven. So if we wanted to use a different example, we could say that the experimental cancer treatment showed promising results among lab mice. So if scientists who are trying to cure cancer, if they want to figure out if a particular treatment is effective or not, whether it works or not, they have to do an experiment. And usually before doing human trials, where they give the medicine to actual real cancer patients, they have to do it using little cute lab mice. So even though an experimental treatment showed good results with the mice, we don't know if it's going to actually work for humans or for everybody. So it's still unproven. So kind of like our non-alcoholic red wine experiment. They said, well, it works among these 67 Spanish men that we tested, but we don't actually know for sure yet if the experiment will be effective for everybody. So more trials are likely needed. Okay. Predetermined. Predetermined. This looks like a long word, but it's actually not as complicated as it looks. So if we break the word up into two parts, see this pre and then determine, right? So in Korean, it becomes kind of obvious. 미리 결정하다. So pre right here, it means before. And usually in Korean, it's translated as 전 or 미리. And then to determine is to decide something. So if we predetermine something, we decide early and we set our decision ahead of time. So for instance, let's say we're making a new kind of computer and we want to sell our computer to lots and lots of people and hopefully make lots and lots of money. However, there's a guy right next door. He's selling almost the same computer for about $200. It's going to be really, really difficult for us to charge $400, $500 when our product is almost the same. So in this case, you could say that the price of the computer was predetermined by foreign competition. So it's like maybe we want to sell it for a really high price, but we can't actually because the competition of the people in other countries and other factories, they're already selling it for a different price, so we have to sell it for a similar price in order to compete. So in the article it said that, so here it says that the scientists predetermined the amount of time that study participants drink wine and rum. So when you're doing an experiment, you can't just give people the wine, give people the rum and say, oh, just drink it whenever you want, drink however much you want, because we don't know if maybe the amount that they're drinking or the time that they're drinking the wine at would be affecting the results of the study. So it's really important that scientists predetermine all of these things before they actually do the experiment. Okay, here is another a little bit tricky word, consecutive. Consecutive. So in Korean, it's a little bit hard to translate, but here it says 연이은 or 연이요. So for instance, right now it's 장마절 right now in Korea. So it's been raining seemingly forever and it's gonna rain, just keep raining forever and ever. It's super wet and humid and I don't really like it. So if we want to talk about 장마절, talk about how long it's been raining for, we could say that it's been raining for 8 consecutive days. So for 8 days without stopping, it's been raining every single day. I feel like probably it's been even longer than that. To me, it feels like it's been raining for 8 consecutive weeks or months or even years. Oh, I just want to see the sun again, but unfortunately, 장마절 will not allow it. So if we want to talk about the experiment, we can say that the study participants drank wine for 4 consecutive weeks. So for 4 weeks, for 28 days, every single day, they drank red wine, whether it be alcoholic or non-alcoholic, and then they also drank rum. So every single person got to see how each type of alcohol helped with their blood pressure. All right, so the next word is reduce. Reduce. So when we reduce something, we make it lower or we make it less. So for instance, I live in Seoul and the traffic here is absolutely crazy. So it's really, really hard to get anywhere in your car sometimes. However, let's imagine that I made some new roads that take me exactly where I have to go. So in that case, we could say that the new roads reduced traffic jams, or it reduced traffic. So the new roads made it so that there's less traffic, it opened up the freeways, and now people can get to where they're going much faster. So I think that's a really good thing. Another really good thing is that drinking non-alcoholic red wine may reduce blood pressure. So we all know that having high blood pressure is not really a good thing. It means that your heart is working extra hard to get the blood pumping through your body, and it makes your heart really, really tired. And sometimes it makes your heart really, really tired. And sometimes people even die because their blood pressure is so high, or their blood can't actually go to where they need it to go in their body. So it's a very dangerous thing. So if we can help people reduce their blood pressure, get their blood pressure to normal, using red wine of all things, that's a very good thing. Okay, so you may have seen this word before, but I just want to make sure that you understand what this word means in the context of a scientific experiment. So it looks a little bit long, but it's significant or significantly. So in Korean, we can say that something that is significant in this context is 유의미하다 or 중요하다. So something that is significant is having consequence, it's really important, and it's considerable. So like 상당한 or 영향력이 있는, 아니 중요한, 유의미한. So like all of these words all kind of exist under the umbrella of significantly. So for instance, we could say if we're having an election and we're worried, oh, maybe not enough people will come out to vote, it's not really a good thing, because the more people vote, the more we can tell what the country as a whole is thinking. So, but fortunately, this year we had way more people than we did last year come out to vote. So that's a really, really good thing. So if we wanted to describe the situation, in English we could say that the turnout for this year's election was significantly higher than last year. So if it's significantly higher, it's not just, 10 more people or even 100 more people. Maybe it's several thousand people or even several million people more than last year came out to vote. So that is a very important and positive thing. So in the article, we read that red wine can significantly reduce blood pressure. So in science, when we say that something, or when we say that a result is significant, that means that we've negated the possibility of anything else causing that change. It is only the independent variable, here the red wine, that is causing this change. So if the experiment said that the red wine significantly reduced blood pressure in the patients, that's a really significant or important result, because that means there's no possibility of something else causing the change, at least according to this study. So this is actually not so much of a like a 영어. It's kind of a little bit, it's more of like an old-fashioned way of saying something. So in English we use this phrase a lot. It's just a wives' tale. So literally it's a story or a tale or a rumor or a superstition that has been kind of circulated for a long time. We don't really know if it's true or not. It could be a myth, it could be totally fake, or sometimes, a lot of the time, it's actually true. So a wives' tale is a superstition or a piece of advice that was believed in the past. So I'm going to give you an example I don't know if people also tell this old wives' tale in Korea, but in America, my mom always used to tell me not to swallow my chewing gum because it would stay in my stomach for 7 years. And this totally scared me, and I never swallowed my gum. I always threw it away properly. But it's actually not true. You can swallow your gum and it will pass through your body just fine, but it's not so good for your digestive system. So if we wanted to describe this kind of situation, we could say that the old wives' tale that gum stays in your stomach for 7 years was likely made up to prevent children from eating too much gum. So I'm kind of mad. I feel like I've been lied to my whole life, but it was actually probably for my own good, because actually eating gum is not super good for your stomach, but this old wives' tale was made up so that children wouldn't get, they wouldn't eat too much gum and kind of scare them out of doing something that's bad for them. Because of course you can't tell a 3-year-old child or a 5-year-old child, oh no, don't swallow that gum, because it'll hurt your esophagus. They don't know what an esophagus is. They're a child. So this old wives' tale was made up so that children wouldn't eat too much gum. And it's fine. Like the kids all survived. They made it through. So I think it's actually okay. Okay. So here's another tricky word, a variant. A variant. So in Korean we could say it's a 변종 or 이형. So a variant, if we describe it very simply, is just a type of something. So for instance, in the article, we read that there's 2 variants of red wine. There's one variant that has alcohol, the alcoholic red wine, and the other variant, which is non-alcoholic, or the non-alcoholic red wine. So when we can break something up into 2 different types, each type is called a variant. So, for instance, we can say that the non-alcoholic variant of red wine was more effective than alcoholic red wine. So the red wine that had no alcohol in it whatsoever was actually better for reducing blood pressure than the red wine that had alcohol in it. Or I'm sure some of you have come across this. So even English has different variants. So there's American English, which is the type of English that I speak. There's Canadian English, there's Australian English, there's English from the UK, and all of these different types of English from all around the world. So we can say that the different words that people use for these different types of English have variant spellings. So sometimes you can spell the same word in 2 very different ways. So for instance, some words have variant spellings in British and American English. So for instance, if we look all the way down here, we see the word color. Pretty simple, right? Just 색깔. But in America, we spell it C-O-L-O-R. But in Britain, so in England, they spell it with a U. So C-O-L-O-U-R. For Americans, this is very strange. But it's actually technically not wrong, because British English is also a variant of English, just like American English is. So if you want to study in Britain, you should probably study the variant of English that is spoken in the UK or in England. However, if you want to study in the USA, you should study the American variant of English. All right, we're more than halfway through, so we're just going to do 4 more words and then we are going to be done for today. So let's all get ourselves pumped up. We can do this. All right, so the next word is stockpile. So in Korean, we can say 비축하다 or 비축량 or 저장장. So when we stockpile something or we have a stockpile of something, it means that we have accumulated a large store of that thing. So for instance, one of the most common usages of this word stockpile is to describe what happens to nuclear weapons during the Cold War. So the US and the Soviet Union had large stockpiles of nuclear weapons during the Cold War. So that means that both of these countries, they had these huge storehouses full of just nuclear bombs. Just in case the US attacked the Soviet Union or the Soviet Union attacked the US, we had this big pile a stockpile of nuclear bombs that we could use just in case something bad happened. Fortunately, we never actually had to use them, thank God. But it's still actually a problem today because we don't know where to put these stockpiles anymore. So it's a little bit of a tricky situation. So another usage of this word that you might have seen recently is to describe the situation with masks during the COVID-19 pandemic. So some countries are stockpiling masks to prevent the spread of COVID-19. So that means that some countries, they're making tons and tons of masks and they're hoarding them. They're keeping them stored in like a storage bin somewhere just in case their country has another outbreak of coronavirus. So if you stick this word into two parts, you can see stock, so keeping something or saving something, and pile, which is literally just me. So like a pile of books, a pile of clothes, or a pile of masks. Or if you're super rich and you're a huge country, you can also have a pile of nuclear weapons. I don't recommend it though. Right, third to last word. Let's keep going. Universal. Universal. So in Korean, you can say something is universal when it is 보편적인. So something that is universal affects every single person on Earth, in the solar system, in the entire universe. So the reason why we have this word universal is because it means that literally every single person or every single thing in the entire universe is affected by this thing. So it's very, very important or influential. So for instance, what's something that every single human on this earth has in common? So we could say that the need for food, water, and shelter is universal because every single person on this planet needs food, water, and shelter to survive. So that need is universal. Or if we want to talk about the article, we could say that scientists are still unsure if the effect of non-alcoholic red wine on blood pressure is universal. So they tested it on 67 guys from Spain. They know it works for them. However, they don't really know if it would work for, say, men from France or men from America or women or young people. So it's still not a universally acknowledged effect. Our next word is necessitate. So this is a little bit of a tricky word to pronounce, so I recommend that you try practicing saying it at home. Necessitate. Necessitate. So this looks kind of like another word that we probably already know. So if we just add a Y right here, we could say necessity, something that we need, or necessitate. So something that would like make something needed, or 필요하게 만들다. So in English we can say to make unavoidable or necessary. So for instance, we could say that the COVID-19 pandemic necessitated the use of masks in public places. So before the COVID-19 pandemic, wearing a mask in public, it was kind of a choice. A lot of people chose not to wear masks. However, nowadays, all of us need to wear masks. So we could say, or in the article it said that some people were unsure if this experiment about non-alcoholic red wine on blood pressure would necessitate changes in nutritional guidance. So if we found out that there's this miracle drink, non-alcoholic red wine, and it cures all your illnesses and it gives you great blood pressure and it makes you super smart, so if we found something like that, then we would have to change a lot of the nutritional guidance, a lot of the things that we know about what kind of foods are good for our bodies. If we found this out, it would definitely necessitate a change because everyone would of course want to, be more healthy by drinking this. But it's still not sure if the effect is actually universal, so no change is necessitated just yet. All right, we made it all the way to the end of today's article. So we're just gonna read through it one more time and then all of us can go home. So I'm very excited. All right, so let's do it back through in English one more time. A group of scientists based in Spain has discovered that drinking a moderate amount of red wine on a daily basis may be effective in lowering blood pressure. The scientists performed an experiment using 67 men between the ages of 55 and 75 as test subjects. The subjects drank a predetermined amount of red wine, non-alcoholic red wine, and rum for consecutive periods of 4 weeks each. Subjects' blood pressure was reduced significantly during the periods in which they drank non-alcoholic red wine. It's been an old wives' tale for decades that a glass of red wine per day is good for one's health. However, this study found that while the alcoholic red wine produced moderate results, the non-alcoholic variant lowered blood pressure by 6%, much more than the alcoholic red wine or rum. So, does this mean that high blood pressure patients should start stockpiling non-alcoholic red wine? A professor at Harvard University is not so sure. Quote, because the study's N, which is a scientific term for the number of subjects, was so low, and the effect has only been observed in middle-aged Spanish males, we can't guarantee that the effect will be universal, she said. Further testing will be needed to see if the results of this study necessitate a change in nutritional guidance for the public at large. In a time when over 1/3 of Americans suffer from high blood pressure, this remedy could be a sweet alternative to expensive medications. In the meantime, however, we will have to continue searching for a cure. All right, so today we learned a lot about non-alcoholic red wine, lowering blood pressure, as well as lots of other new and interesting vocabulary words. So I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video and this article. I actually wrote it myself, so I'm a little bit proud. But yeah, so if you want to tune in for next week's video, make sure to hit subscribe. And if you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, make sure to let us know in the comments section below. All right, everybody have a great day, and I'll see you next week. Bye.